Good morning, everyone. Today we're checking out a brand new video from Popcross Studios of turning Zootopia characters into werewolves. Now, technically, it'd be beast, but werewolves is just the most common term that everyone knows for a monster, a monster creature, humanoid being. So, either way, let's hop in and see how these Disney characters get monsterized.
Today's episode
That
of
was
Zootopia
okay.
characters as werewolves or werebeasts is something that I've been really excited to try out, but it also prompted an idea in me that I want to get some input
Ooh.
from you all on. I love drawing characters in some kind of mid-transformation. I do a drawing like that today, and I want to do more
That's
of
good.
that. So I would love some suggestions if you have any ideas for characters, types of videos, creatures that I could do that would involve designing characters in a state of mid-transformation. It's definitely a more specific request, but I'd
That
love
could be
people's
anywhere.
ideas in the comments. But anyway, besides that, Zootopia Werewolves.
I've got an idea.
Hit like
If you want. Subscribe if you feel like it. By the way, enjoy the show.
Well, it seems
So we're starting off first and foremost with Judy Hopps, the newest member of the ZPD, Zootopia Police Department, and also currently the smallest member until the second movie came out, and then we found out it was like mice walking.
turned. I took some time away from my duties as an aide to the Van Helsing estate to see if that would direct my attention towards a new line of work, or if I'd feel called to return to a particularly dangerous one. Spending so much time nearly gripped in the jowls of various fanged beasts was essentially the only life I'd known, so I thought it best to at least try stepping away from that and see how I felt. But the lifestyle briskly came back to find me, and I
Yeah,
was less
you can never
opposed
leave
to
it
that
behind.
outcome than I'd have anticipated. I took some time to go hiking and found that to be a rather pleasant experience. Too pleasant. It lacked the challenge, the danger that I'd grown so accustomed to. At first, I simply started carrying the same large bag that I often would for the Van Helsings, full of weaponry, books, and herbal remedies of varying varieties. It did
Interesting.
increase the challenge, but did not increase the danger. So I began hiking in regions known to be filled with creatures of sordid types. I wound up fighting
I know he hasn't colored in the outfit yet, but I actually kind of like it. Looks like he's going with a kind of traditional, old England kind of police outfit, or what many people would know as a bobby.
off vampires, fey folk, ghouls, but unearthed the greatest surplus of fanged fiends when I found myself in an astoundingly bustling yet simultaneously isolated territory. It was in a region surrounded by mountains where travelers are heavily encouraged not to explore due to the abundance of disappearances from
City,
those
of
who
course.
have trekked too far in. It was a territory the Van Helsings had had on their docket to explore for some time, but, as far as I'm aware, have not gotten to as of yet. I decided to explore it myself, driven by the apparent subconscious urge to be surrounded by danger I've grown so familiar with. I hiked for 3 days and found a surprising lack of danger claimed to be present.
You know, I feel like this narrator would actually get along with Bustar Tominax, simply because the creature's Bustar is sent out to acquire, capture, and return. And this guy just being like, I like being around danger. Can you shoot me?
I'd thought I'd at least have come across some sort of ravenous bear or pack of coyotes, but no such beasts appeared. It was only on the third eve, just before the full moon was cresting over the hills, I'd just passed over a tall mount to gaze out into a valley, when I found a large town in the midst of it. In fact, its vastness was expansive enough to nearly call it a city. I was perplexed.
Almost
This place
a
was on no maps as far
Zootopia.
as I knew, did no trade with the outside world, so how was it so abundantly large? I considered that it may even be some form of illusion, one made to lure in wary travelers looking for a place to rest.
I could see that.
That
That'd
should
be
have set me
pretty
at
clever.
dis-ease, and it did on the surface, but the deeper urge to find familiar threats overtook that concern, and I approached. It took a few hours to reach the outskirts to farmland stretching around the town. It was there that I met the first of this region's residents. She was apparently a low-ranking constable, having begrudgingly stepped...
Constable, that's actually what the British cops were called. They were called constables. Bobby was just kind of the nickname for them. Like how over in America we have police officers, but we also just call them cops.
away from her
Right.
duties for a brief time on the orders of the chief of the city guard. She seemed concerned upon my approach,
Constable,
then much
forgot about
more
that.
so when I confirmed as she suspected that I was from out of town. She promptly looked up to the sky, turning from day to night, and told me I needed to leave immediately. She said that she hated to be rude, but that this was for my own protection, that the number of attacks in WEREWOLVES had rapidly increased
Wheretopia.
as of late, and a traveler
Clever.
unlike those from this land was at the greatest risk of all. Before I was able to ask why or what separated me in kind from the denizens of this land, the full moon emerged, and her transformation began.
The idea of the mid
My new acquaintance needn't
Nick
say anymore,
Wilde.
as her body's rapid hair growth, bone-shifting, year-extending transformation said all I needed to know. She was a werewolf, or were-rabbit, but despite the differing
Yeah.
traits of the animals off whom these variants of curses are named, were-rabbits are just as likely to be violent beasts as their wolf counterparts. They will
Easily.
simply have other proclivities on top of
Yeah, not as
aggression.
much though, actually.
I had quickly drawn a silver stake and a musket with a loaded silver bullet, but the transformed woman did not attack. While her voice sounded simultaneously more grovelly and higher-pitched, she seemed to be maintaining her sentient faculties. It appeared there was
Ooh,
not
that's
the
kinda
degree
frail.
of danger she'd claimed, but once again she insisted that I leave. She was not the only cursed creature in this town. In fact, the reason this place
It's called Wheretopia. I figured that every single denizen of that place is a frickin' whale beast.
was not on any maps, was not more widely known, was because it was a safe haven, safe being a term used loosely, for werewolves or werebeasts of all varieties. Weretopia,
okay.
as some called it. Lycans, those with the Lupin's curse and such similar maledictions can find a home here without threat of being hunted. At least being hunted by those who fear their curse. They were obviously still under threat of being killed by others with violent cursed tendencies, but new residents of these lands were made to go through schooling that would teach them to control their urges while in their altered and cursed states. Though this is not...
You know, quick question about the transformation though. Does it happen every night? Because in most werewolf stories, it only happens on the night of the full moon, once a month. But if it's every night, I could understand why they would need a city and a school and all that.
Not a perfect practice. The town had been around long enough that my acquaintance Judith had been born and raised here on her parents' farm outside the town. Many others had been born and raised here as well. That was the dominant way new citizens came about. Though occasionally intentional travelers would learn of this place and come here to stay, though they are generally only people with an affinity for beings of the more furry variety.
Oh,
Upon
God, of
arrival, they
course.
will often allow themselves to be
Already
bitten
central.
and cursed by whatever breed of werebeast they are most drawn to. Despite my newly realized drive toward seeking danger, even I was not particularly driven to delve deeper into a town full of werewolves on the night of a full moon. Unfortunately, I did not appear to have
Okay,
a choice
this is a
in
full
that
moon
moment.
night.
As I turned to head back from whence I came, I saw another transformed figure looming on the edge of the woods. It was leaner than werewolves commonly are, and his fur was predominantly orange, suggesting a were-fox.
Oh,
All
yeah.
this said to me was that he would be far more clever than a wolf and kill me slower due to his less elevated strength. I
Clever
aimed
and
my
sly.
weapon but was stopped from firing by Judith. Apparently this was a friend of hers, one she claimed should be able to control himself.
Or husband.
And yet he got on all fours and bounded towards us anyhow, rage and hunger filling his eyes.
Hey, you know what? That's actually a good question for all of y'all out there. For everyone that's seen Zootopia and Zootopia 2, what do y'all actually think of the whole Nick's ex Judy ship and all? And I don't mean them as a cop partners. I mean as a partners. 'Cause if you've seen the memes, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Eyes. Judith claimed he must have been ailed by the savage curse. It was something she claimed was ravaging the town. More and more people were succumbing to their cursed urges than ever before.
Like the
She
night
had seen the rise ever
howls.
since moving
Yeah.
into the center of the city to work in the guard. I suggested, is it not possible you are simply seeing more of the attacks because you moved to a more populated area? She scoffed and stated that Weretopia was a peaceful place for all. She even claimed I
During
was
the
being
day.
prejudiced towards werebeasts. I tried to assert that there is a significant difference between being distrusting of someone with an alternate cultural background and being distrusting of people who literally have a curse that compels them towards violence and bloodshed, but she was
Until they
not
gain
having
control.
it. There was no time to argue anyhow. With her insistence that I not fight back against her friend, we were forced to flee towards the farmhouse, while she attempted to simply talk him down. He got close
Yeah,
enough
good
to
luck with
claw
that.
at my throat when we reached the farm, but Judith stepped into his path. She put herself at risk in my place, and finally her ally did calm. He stated he wasn't sure what came over him, but said so in a way that sounded far too lackadaisical for someone who had just threatened the life of a stranger. Well, apparently,
he may
having
have been
been
doing it on
skeptical
purpose.
himself of her insistence that
Seems like
something
something Nick would
strange was
do.
afoot, he too now asserted Judith may be right. They intended to delve farther into the town to confront
I will say this though, nice pants, pinstripe
authority on
walk.
this matter, and I could not ignore the compulsion to see this little investigation through along with them. No matter how illogical and mendacious I knew it to be. Judith tried to urge me away, but upon stating that she clearly didn't trust this town to be as safe as she claimed, by her insistence that I depart, she stubbornly shifted mood and demanded that I follow along to see what a delightful place this monster-ravaged town could be.
Judy's done, Nick is done. Who will be next after the book ad?
Ah, Gengodren, it's good to see you again, even if only non-canonically here in advertisement realm, where we are to suggest people purchase novels
The ad
such
realm.
as Fear of the Demon Hunters, if they want more tales and art similar to what you are sharing today. Vasilia, it is, I suppose, pleasant to see you once more.
Vasilia,
Though,
yeah.
while you are meant
The
to
Alma
speak of the
woman.
novels, it has apparently been my charge to suggest the listeners explore the newest coloring book of fantasy beasts. There are creatures
has a
within
few
it that I
dragons?
have spoken of in the past. Ah, well, perhaps we could compete to see who could market their product more effectively. If it is a competition, I imagine you will take victory, as I don't The novels are infinitely superior to the coloring books. The art in the novels is already colored and beautifully done so. You can simply bask in the glory of the art and tales. No work required by you. Will
Except
this
breathing.
competition end if I concede the victory to you? It's no fun if you do not compete back. Fine. Bookstore is linked in description. Now return to city full of were creatures likely less elegant than my own were jaguar form.
Yeah, it is true.
We marched through
Oh,
the town that seemed
really? Bellwether, huh? Huh. I was not expecting the lamb.
to be in a
sheep.
state of
Goat? No, sheep.
pandemonium. It was akin to a raucous party in the streets and a vicious city-sprawling pub brawl. Judith explained that some residents can transform at will, some transform every night, and many only on full moons.
Ah.
But that means that
Okay, that answers the question I had asked earlier. Some can do it at will, some every night, some only on the full moon.
whenever a
Okay.
full moon does arise, the entire city will break out together to partake in dusk till dawn revelry. There were many violent looks and even some claw swipes slung my way, but Judith and her werefox ally, Nicholas, did an acceptable job keeping me protected. They had insisted I put my silver weaponry away, but I still had a small silver knife easily accessible in my pocket that I was fiddling with and ready to utilize if necessary.
Good thinking.
Apparently, Judith had been overly insistent with her superiors that there was something strange afoot. what she was dubbing the Savage Curse, and after investigating against their wishes, she was temporarily released from duty and lost all authority that came with her position. But she refused to stand down, even if her resources had become more limited. Even after she told me of multiple attacks she'd investigated, I was still not hearing anything of shock. No matter what schooling is put in place, a city full of werewolves and such beasts was sure to have many who let slip their mental faculties when transformed. She once again tried to assert that I was being—
This is quite literally just a false Zootopia movie, but instead of, I'm guessing, night howlers, yeah, that damn blue flower, however you pronounce the frickin' name, it's something else, something akin to that.
Prejudice towards her kind. I stated that I myself was well aware of many people who have the ability to control their curse, and acknowledged that it was certainly possible, if very difficult, but even they could occasionally slip, and control was certainly not guaranteed to be a constant in a city full of cursed beasts. Judith ignored me and insisted on speaking to the mayor of the town directly himself. Her superiors had not given her the appointment with him she'd sought to discuss this matter, but he was sure to make a public appearance on the night of a full moon, and she hoped to speak with him as he was leaving his home. She even had an in with his assistant to aid us, who was a were-sheep. This may sound like a humorous form of were-beast, but they're not as uncommon as you might think.
Wait, for real?
They can also be much more violent than you may expect.
Oh, damn.
The core difference from a werewolf being that when a were-sheep tears you to shreds with their teeth, it takes longer due to them being dull, blunt instruments of mangling. Still, we reached the mayor's manor to find the assistant on the grounds, warding away any partiers who were getting too rowdy. She was a short woman even in her altered state, and was clearly distressed to learn that an out-of-town traveler was accompanying Judith and Nicholas, but was still swayed to allow us an audience with the mayor. She stated he had not come out yet and was likely still in his human form if he hadn't stepped into the moonlight. We were even allowed inside, led by the assistant, and headed up an elegant staircase.
You know, weirdly enough, I've actually heard a few werewolf stories to, well, you don't actually have to be in direct moonlight of a full moon to transform. It just has to be a full moon night. I guess different stories have different strokes for different folks.
Of course, when it was mentioned in passing that the mayor was a were-lion, I stopped, with some protective instincts finally awakening in me. Were-lions are even more ferocious and aggressive than werewolves. The Van Helsings had come across very few, and the ones they—
it's a freaking lion. They'll literally call it the king of the jungle.
Had never been able to control themselves. When she saw my hesitation, Judith insisted that I move along faster. Even if the number of violent attacks had increased, she was certain the mayor, of all people, would not succumb to vicious impulses.
Well, let's find out.
The assistant threw open the doors to his chambers at the exact wrong moment. The mayor was standing before his window in mid-transformation, and was clearly agitated by the intrusion.
Yeah, I guess in a way you would want privacy for it, because it's like you're getting chains. It's like, hey, yo, close the door! You don't need me seeing this! Alright, here we go.
Well, I had not seen him in his full human state. It seemed the mayor was already a very large, muscular, imposing figure even prior to his transformation. As his body warped and altered into a cursed humanoid lion form, he became that much larger. His clothes also tore, which was perplexing in itself. I knew there was a large threat present to me, in spite of Judith's insistence otherwise, and yet I couldn't help focusing on the fact that this mayor, who knew himself to be a were-lion, had not clad himself in clothing that would stretch with him, or was at least large enough to adorn his altered form. It looked like a rather elegant and expensive suit he was tearing through as well.
Yeah, that's a shame.
What a waste.
Actually, hell, that would be an amazing market in a kind of fantasy world with werewolves. Those clothing that can stretch with a transformation. Get them the same pants the Hulk is wearing!
Anyhow, I drew my knife and dropped my pack to pull out other silver weaponry and promptly infuriated Judith and her allies. Of course, I simply rolled my eyes at her as the allegedly stoic and composed mayor of this town thundered towards me in his were-lion form, fangs bared and rage in his eyes. Judith tried to talk him down, confused by his violent approach, and he struck her out of his path on his way to me,
Ooh,
seeing
I hope
my
it was the
silver
backhand at
weapons.
least.
The fox did not step in to take a swipe for me, but did shove me out the door and close it. I stepped aside, knowing what likely came next, and the door was smashed off its hinges with the fox's body having been hurled into it. I realized that, even if this were-lion was dangerous, killing him would likely just cause more problems for me, so I carried off my bag, rummaging through it for some less lethal useful assets. The mayor's assistant came out the broken
just
doorway,
paralyze him?
urging the mayor to stand down, though doing so in a somewhat theatrical way, as though it were more performative than sincere. Still, the mayor knocked her from his path next, then came bounding after me. Thankfully, I was then prepared.
I thought this guy was a lion. Why is he acting like a rhino?
pulled forth a vial of wolfsbane and powdered iron, poured them into my hand, and waited for the beast to approach.
Ooh, clever.
I'll admit I impressed myself with how still I was able to remain upon the creature's charge. Normally I rely on a Van Helsing to protect me, but it seemed with them not around, I easily fell into the role of protecting myself. The
You
beast
became
was
your own
clearly
Van
about
Helsing.
ready to lunge, so I lunged forward first and blew the concoction from my palm into its open maw. He coughed and choked on it, stumbling back. I clutched my musket in case the ailment had not been enough. But as hoped, the mayor seemed to regain his full faculties, and he turned to me with less violence in his eyes.
Ah, finally.
I am truly sorry, young man. I'm not sure what came over me there. You're a were-lion who is alarmed in mid-transformation. Your reaction was not unexpected. In fact, it is more surprising to me that the small amount of werewolf deterrent I responded with was enough to set you into a calmed state. It is
That
quite
is
impressive
true.
to see someone in control of your particular curse, I informed him. Judith then emerged and furiously claimed I was being condescending to the mayor. She asserted that he must have been afflicted by whatever has been causing the increase in attacks.
Yeah,
She
that's
even
a
turned
chance.
on her supposed
Possibility,
ally,
I
the
mean.
mayor's assistant, stating,
You did this. You must have wanted the mayor to attack us. If people knew he'd allowed his curse to get to him and he'd killed someone, you'd acquire his position.
The mayor's assistant responded,
What? Of course not. I mean, I would admittedly happily take his job if something like that did occur, but I didn't try
mean
to
like it
make
did
him
in the
attack
movie?
you. Like the young man said, we just entered at a bad time and alarmed him.
I believe she was underselling her interest in the outcome of her acquiring the mayor's position, but no part
Too
of me
obvious,
thinks she was
Bellwether.
conspiring to make it so.
What about Nicholas? What could have caused you to attack?
The werefox shrugged.
Well, Hops, I kinda do snap sometimes. Might have just been that I smelled the new guy's silver weapons or something and got riled up.
That's a possibility.
But why? Why are there so many attacks happening? I never saw this many attacks out in the farmlands. Something has to be afoot.
The mayor himself looked baffled by her.
What, are you serious? There's no conspiracy here. Of course there are a lot of violent attacks. You lived in a town full of f***ing werewolves.
Ooh!
She was flabbergasted, but I think the message finally sunk
The only extra thing about that is that the lion was voiced by J.K. Simmons in the movie. That's right, frickin' Omni-Man.
in. Her life and the life of those in this city was not some metaphor for bigotry. They were simply a massive collective of cursed beings, and attacks would never be uncommon in this place.
Huh.
Still,
So there
to
was
calm
nothing.
the upsetting revelation, I did make sure not to rub in that I'd told her so. And in fact, I made sure to inform her that I was impressed by the control I'd seen overall asserted by the people of this land. I
not
did
bad.
not remain much longer, and the mayor granted me an escort out of the city limits. It was upon the conclusion of this ordeal that I determined it was time for me to return to my position under the Van Helsing estate. Whether seeking the
time to go
familiarity
home.
of being in peril, or simply having realized that I enjoy the work, it seemed evident that whether I was with the Van Helsings or not, danger would always be around the corner. So I may as well surround myself with other people who are as equipped as I to handle it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you've been around the Van Helsing long enough, you pretty much become a Van Helsing. Not in name or blood, but in training. There you go.
Well, it seems I've returned. Somehow, Gingodrin has returned.
Surrender to the dark side.
That's a voice I should use for something.
I am the Senate.
Yeah, you could totally use
Vader.
Palpatine.
Get me a cookie.
By intrusion.
Where monkey? There's no conspiracy here, of course.
Okay, no. I want to see a whale monkey now. Why would that actually be kind of incredible? Give me a whale monkey.
There are a lot of violent attacks. You live in a town full of werewolves. I may or may not have written the entire episode around this line.
Yeah, no
That
shit.
combo of below lighting and backlighting on Nick? Mwah! I need to do that more often. Beautiful. Anyway, if you
It
enjoyed
was
this,
well
you probably
done.
like some of the other Spooky Month episodes I've been doing, like Shrek as a Horror Story, or public domain cartoons in the realm of hopeful horrors, which
They're
is a
all
series
good?
of mine that itself I've made public domain. So if you want to use the lore and characters and creatures and all that for your own projects, you're free to. But anyway, besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive,
inspiring note.
And the thought I want to leave people with today is actually a blurb that I read from the British Medical Journal that was published back in 2023. And I'm literally just
medical
going to
line.
read this out so that I don't paraphrase it all. Groundbreaking research analyzing 97 reviews of over 1,000 clinical trials with 128,119 participants found that exercise works as well and sometimes better than antidepressants and therapy for treating depression and anxiety.
Yeah,
Basically,
that's
just
actually
a great
kind of
reminder
true.
that exercise is a very simple, doable, free method for
I do have to
improving both
agree.
your physical and mental health. And it doesn't have to be intense. It can literally be get up and go for a half-hour walk.
Yeah, just
So I
take a
hope
walk.
that's some inspiring information. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Monday.
That actually is a very true thing that even I had thought about. Because, many people are always like, oh, I'm depressed, I need to be on this medication. But if you just stop the medication and kind of focus on yourself instead of the negative stuff around you, you can actually improve both your physical and mental health. So, like you're saying, a little bit of a walkout, even just a walk, even getting a energetic dog can help you out quite a lot. Anyway, folks, that's going to be the end of today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Link to the original video in the description below, and I'll see all of you next time when we flick back on. Till then, this is Fox, signing out. Peace.